Hello, my name's Andy. Welcome to episode 54 of Keeping Water. Thank you to everyone who subscribed over the last week. It's really much appreciated. And for all the helpful and positive comments after last week's episode. Not too much done this week in the pond. Decorating in the house has been the focus. Although I have done a couple of sessions filming the fry and started another course of treatment for the carp. And it's the fry that are the main focus of this week's episode. I'll be looking at what my plans are for them, what I've learnt from their growth from fry to mostly mature fish, and what the risks to them are in the pond. If you're new to the channel and not yet subscribed, please press or click or otherwise make the subscribe button work to keep you aware of when I release my at least weekly videos. It will also help grow the channel, keeping my motivation and enjoyment going. It's been surprisingly rewarding to me as subs have increased and the channel has grown. So thank you again if you're signed up and if you're just about to. Like many, I'm planning for a little giveaway when I reach the first notable landmark of 500. In fact, I've already begun getting it together. I've got quite a few plans for future episodes. Most, unfortunately, have been delayed due to the carp's ill health. There's still time, however. And I'd especially, if and when they get better, like to complete the feeding video, reviewing any changes from last year, looking at what's working and not working, and experimenting with different food types before the weather and water cool down and it becomes less practical. Anyway, let's start this episode properly by taking a look at the fry. I'm pretty pleased that the rudd have spawned. I kind of predicted they would, but it was still a surprise. And a very welcome one after a series of problems had not made pond keeping too much fun lately. There doesn't seem to be too many of them. I've only spotted 8 at any one time, although obviously there may be more. But that makes sense considering the rudd are quite young and it's their first spawning. Additionally, the carp are pretty greedy and may have eaten some of the eggs or equally the fry. But now I have to think what I'm going to do, or slightly more accurately not do, with them. As you may know from previous episodes, this isn't the first time that rudd have spawned in my pond. In fact, the current fish are a result of my original rudd spawning in 2016. However, there's some differences about the pond this time that make outcomes more uncertain. So, some background. Apologies if you know most of this already, but just to get people new to the channel up to date. The rudd in my pond now are the young from the first spawning of my original ones, which unfortunately didn't make it through the winter of the beast from the east. To find out more about that, please watch episode 2. Like this time, I didn't spot the rudd spawning, and only realised that they had when I spotted fry swimming around. As now, it was a lovely surprise. A couple of weeks after spotting them, I netted out about half of the ones I could see and placed them in a tank with a sponge filter and some algae covered pebbles from the pond. I also bought some fry food for them. Anyway, after about 2 months I returned them to the pond, and interestingly there was no difference in size between them and the fry that had remained in the pond. My pond then, and now, is pretty rich in algae and insect life, and presumably insect larvae, so there is plenty of natural food for the fry in the pond. Consequently, I didn't therefore add any food specifically for the smaller fry, and they did okay, growing steadily, and at the end of 2017, just before the beast from the east, I had 30 or so at around 3 inches or a bit bigger. 13 of the fry managed to survive the pond disaster that was the beast from the east, and are the ones currently in the pond, all about 5 to 6 inches and just about the size of their parents when they first spawned. So what I've learned from the previous fry is that there's plenty of food in the pond for them, and that, certainly in the first few months, there's no need to remove them and or add specific fry food. Over time, I might have got faster growth if I'd given them better food for their size as they grew, or put them in a tank over winter. Therefore, I've got no plans to take the current fry out of the pond, although there are other factors to think about in regards to their welfare in the pond. From the 2016 spawning, I didn't really get an idea of how many fry originally developed from eggs, and how many were then lost once freely swimming in the pond, so it's hard to say what impact the environment had on their survival. The risks to them consisted as predation from larger fish and frogs, injury from being drawn into the pump, and from my interventions in the pond when cleaning, vacuuming, etc. Which they seem to avoid quite well. As I said, I wasn't entirely sure how many fry came from the eggs, so can't say how many suffered an unfortunate fate. However, there was no noticeable reduction in numbers at any point. But things are a little different now. The first carp I had were fairly relaxed and non-aggressive fish, who seemed quite happy to share the pond with any other fish. My current ones, the common carp at least, are not quite so friendly, as the crucian carp I put in found out. Equally, it's quite common for fish to eat fry and eggs, even their own, so it's a risk that's fairly high. I now have a skimmer, which though not equipped by the most powerful of pumps, still has a decent amount of flow towards it, and although they so far seem able to swim away from it, they may get too close and get drawn in. Obviously, I can check the skimmer regularly and rescue any ones that are trapped in it. The filter floss may well prevent them getting caught into the pump, so saving them may well be possible. The last problem relates to the current health issues my fish are experiencing and the treatments I may need to use. Due to having tension rudd in my pond, there's only one or maybe two anti-parasite treatments I can use. However, I can't find any info as to whether they're safe for younger rudd as well. So, my options could be to net them out. The problem being that I'd have no idea if they got them all, and equally, if and when I return them, would there be a risk of them carrying parasites and reintroducing them to the pond? So, a quandary. What I've gone with is leaving them in the pond and treating anyway, and ever so slightly crossing my fingers. If this course of treatment doesn't work, then I may be trying something more substantial anyway, but we'll see. So, there's a fair few risks for the newest arrivals to the pond, with even the older rudd chasing them too, but they appear to have some good dodging instincts and their species' natural agility already. As I've said, I'm not entirely sure how many there are. I'd be surprised if there's many more than 20, and I'd be even more surprised if there were more than 10 left next spring. In regards of how many I'd keep longer term, that all depends on water quality. I like the idea of a multi-generational stock of rudd, but with 2, possibly 4 in the future, large carp and a largest tench, stocking will be tight over time. So, roughly, I'll try to keep each year spawning until I can't maintain the water quality, which is very unscientific I know, but I've not got a better plan. If I do get a really large spawning, with 40 to 50 fry surviving into the following spring, then I'll move some on rather than wait for problems, as they would obviously be too much. A quick update on the carp. No change really. If anything, since the weather has cooled a little, they've become even more active, constantly foraging on the bottom for food and investigating the surface and marginal plants for possible pellets, hopefully not the fry. As I mentioned earlier, I'm treating again this week for parasites. Thank you for everyone who shared their thoughts last week. It's a 5-day course, after which I'll wait 7 days and then repeat it. After that, I'll give them a fortnight or so and then make a decision. If they're still unwell, then I may need to go down the route of treatment options incompatible with the tension rudd, which will mean removing them to a temporary home. More accurately diagnose what parasite problem the carp have got, and then treating just the carp in the pond. I've wanted to avoid that, but it may prove inevitable, just one of the ongoing complications of a mixed species pond. Thanks a lot for watching, I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed watching, please give it a like and subscribe if you're not already. Over the next week, I'm going to be continuing with the carp's treatments and monitoring the fry, but I'm also turning my thoughts to autumn and winter, as there's some things I want to address a bit more successfully this time, especially leaf management. I'm also thinking about next year, a bit early maybe, but it never hurts to plan ahead. My overall objective will be stability, and maybe to focus on factors around the pond, rather than in it too much. We'll see, and I'll obviously talk more about it moving forward. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.